Tamiya Renault 5 Turbo on the M05RA chassis. Today we'll be covering steps 7 to 12, which will complete parts bag A, and getting straight into it. Step 7, we're going to be building up and attaching the front Aeons, as they're called, or wishbones. And for this we're going to need obviously the chassis, the two A-arms that we built in a previous step. We've got two plastic parts C18, which are the upper arms, and then the metal bits we've got two offered BA10s, which are 3x14mm step screws, two off of BA14, which are 3x46mm screw pins, two off of BA24 3mm O-rings, and finally two off of BA25 the gearbox joints. And there's a note here about greasing the two gearbox joints, but as I've used roller bearings I'm not going to do that. And then there's a note here about be careful not to tighten the step screw firmly due to the movement of upper arms. So we'll get straight on, and I think we might start with them. So it should just be a case of getting a C18, one of the step screws, popping it through, and then finding the right hole, which is the top one of the two. And we just gently screw it in. So there we have it. I'm not so sure why they put that note, because I've tightened that fully and it's still quite loose. And the next thing we can do is I think we'll put these O-rings in, and for that we're going to need one of the dog bones. Just get that out of my little thing, makes it easy to get them in. There we go. And then we just use the dog bone to force it down, and then try and force it all the way down, and hopefully that will stay in and won't ping out. And the same with this one. See that? I'm not sure you will be able to. And then we can just pop these in either side here, and I generally spin it round until I feel it slot in. And the same with the other side. There we go. And then you should be able to wiggle them round, make sure the differential's working. The lower front arm, and for this you need to note the directions, shall we say, or the orientation. And the right hand side, which is what this one's saying it is, you should have this round stick on bit, shall we say, uppermost and to the front, and it should just slip in there like so. And your step screw, sorry, not your step screw, what do they call it? Your screw pin should just go through, and then just wiggle it around until you get it all the way through, and then you can screw it up. And this one I would recommend that you don't tighten it, try and tighten it too tight, because this plastic is rather soft plastic, unlike the chassis, which is quite hard. So once you get it nipped up, I would leave it like that, otherwise you're in danger of stripping the thread on that it's cut in. And then it's just a case of repeating that for the other side. And And here we have the finished installation of the Aeons, and honestly not that much movement, a little bit of wobble, but hey, you know, it's not the most expensive of kits. And yeah, both of those screws, step screws, I've tightened fully, and there's still free movement there, but not a massive amount of slack, so job's a good one. So moving on to step 8, which is making up the front axles. And for this we're going to need F11, F1, second F1 and F12 on the plastic side, 2 BA18s 1150 bearings, 4 off of BA22 which are kingpins, and for this chassis, because it's the rally one, I'm using BA19s which are the 5mm ball connectors, long. So I haven't bothered with the BA23s which are the 5mm ball connectors, short, and then 2 BA26s which are the front wheel axles themselves. And again, there's symbols showing to grease, but as I've got the metal ball races, I won't bother with them with that. And there is a note here that says choose from high and low ground clearance settings, use BA23 for a low setting, and obviously BA19 for the high setting. So with that we'll start with F11, and we'll get one of the ball joints, and looking at the diagram it goes in the back hole, so it will just screw in there like so. He says, screwing it in cockeyed, and then you can take the tool that comes with the kit if you haven't got anything else. And then we can take one of the axles, one of the bearings, and pop it through like that and push it home. It's not going home unless that is home. Oh, there we go, it's going in. It's quite a nice tight fit, that bearing is. And then we take the part F1 and check the orientation and pop the steering hub through, and then using one of the kingpins we can start to screw that in. He says, there we go, I think it's just caught. Yep, and the other side. And then we just need to tighten those up, and away we go. So I'll be back shortly. And here we have the 2 steering knuckles done. A quick tip though, while I was doing up the first ones, kingpins, the drive shaft, or what did they call it, I can't remember now, did fall out, and so what I've done is put an R-clip through the hole that you use when you're mounting the 12mm hex adapter, just to hold them in place, because it's a bit fiddly to get back in. Obviously they fall out really easy, but then it's quite fiddly to get them back in. So with that we can then move on to step 9, which is installing these onto the chassis. And for this we're going to need two BA10s, which are the 3x14mm step screws, two BA15s, which are 3x32mm screw pins, and your two drive shafts or dog bones if you like. And again, there's a little note here on putting some sponge on part of the chassis, which I'll do a bit later because I've only just noticed it, if I'm honest. But that says 12x4mm, so I'll cut that out in a bit. And again, it shows you putting grease on the dog bones, but as I'm rallying it, I don't think I'll be putting that on. And then there's a note here that says for a low ground setting, use the bottom holes. And obviously, because I'm on the higher ground clearance for my rallying, I'll be using the upper holes. So I think with that we can get started. Again, it's just a simple case of screwing stuff in, and we start off, we can, what shall we do first? I think we'll do the bottom first, and we put the pin through and then line it up, hopefully. That's it. Thank you. And again, don't tighten this screw up too tight. And then, not forgetting the drive shaft dog bone. We can pop that through. Locate it in the wheel axle, and then we can locate it in the gearbox output. There we go. And then the step screw once again. And then it's just a case of repeating the other side. Right, once you've installed the steering knuckles and the drive shafts, we can move on to step 10, which is the steering linkage. And for this we're going to need two off of BA2s, 3x15mm screw, two off of BA11s, which are 3x10mm step screws, two off of BA12, which are 3x12mm threaded bar, shall we say. They're saying it's a screw, but it's a threaded bar to me. Four off of BA20, which are 850 bearings. Again, I've gone for the bull races. Three off of BA23s, which are 5mm bull connectors. And four off of BA28, which are 5mm adjusters. And as I hope you can see, I've already made one of these steering arms up, and in this case, because the bar's so small, and what I've found from experience is the easiest way to get these on is to start one off. There we go. Then get the other one and start that off. Because these aren't turnbuckles, when you turn the one, it will screw in both sides at the same time, and when one connector starts to tighten up, it'll start screwing into the other side, so you just carry on screwing in, and eventually it should just about centre up, narrow. And then it says you want a gap of 2.5mm to start with, but handily they've got this diagram to scale, and I think maybe just half a turner back out. yeah, I'm happy with that. So there are the two steering arms. We then need to put the ball connectors on here, so let's take this one, and again looking at the diagram, there's a raised section on here where the ball connector screws in, so we put that one in there, and the other two go on B10 underneath. As long as you get the orientation correct. And as you can see from the diagram, there's a slight dip in the top part of it, so it goes that way, and then the ball joints go in the outer hole here. And they just need screwing in and tightening up, so I'll do that and get back to you shortly. Okay, so that's those ball joints done, and whilst doing them up, I think I can't remember telling you what plastic part numbers you need to complete this step, so we'll quickly go through that, and I apologise if I've already done it, but we need 2 off of B3, which are these two beasts, 1 off of B6, which is this one, 1 off of B7, and 1 off of B10, and that's about it. So once that's done, we can then start putting these bearings in. Hopefully they'll be quite a tight fit. Yeah, tight enough that I think they'll stay in, thankfully. Yeah, oh, that's a nice tight one for an R. And then we need 2 BA11s, these two beasts, to screw through that. Get it the right way round, Rob, into that. Nope, that way round. That's the right way. And for B6, make sure that the protrusion is at the bottom where the bearings go, and again we just screw the step screw in. Have it, and then I can pop these tie rods on. There we go, and then we can get the chassis, get one of these B3s, try and work out where it goes. And this pops through here and into there. And then we got the BA2 screw, and again with this other side. And a screw in there, and once they're done up, that's step 10 complete. Right, And there we have the steering installed, and a bit of play, but I've seen worse, put it that way. So we can now move on to step 11, which is installing, what do they call it, the motor plate and the pinion gear. Now the pinion gear is 16 tooth as standard, but there's a note here that says you can have an 18 or a 20 tooth, and then it gives you the gear ratios for doing that. So for step 11 we need one off of BA13, which is a 3mm grub screw, and BA33, which is the pinion gear. And as I say, in this instance it's 16 tooth. And then we need the motor plate, and you're going to need your little Allen key that comes with the kit. And then also you're going to need this part here, which is the pinion stopper, and this is an easy way of determining how far on the shaft the pinion gear should go, and I'll show you that in a second. So first of all we need the motor plate, and this should be a fairly tight fit and stay where you push it. There we go. And then gently tease it round and push it down. And then on the output shaft of the motor there should be a flat, and you line that up with the grub screw, and then get your Allen key, and you should just be able to nip it up. It says, oh yeah, too tight. There we go. So you can still move it, and then it's just a simple case of popping this on, and then you can slide the gear up till it stops, and then we can tighten it down, and then remove that, and then using the shorter length and the longer handle side of it, we should be able to nip it up a bit more to make sure it's good and tight. Like so, and that should be in the correct position to mate with the spur gear. And the final step for this video is step 12, mounting the motor for now. And for this we're going to need two off of BA1s, which are 3x25mm screws, nice and long, and the motor, and obviously the chassis. And there's a few notes here. There's a diagram here showing you where to insert the screws for the stock 16 pinion gear. So if we turn this around this way, we can see we've got 3 holes in the top and 3 in the bottom, and for the 16 it goes in the centre one on each. Like that. And then the tricky bit, because I don't know if you can see that, but it only just, the screws only just poke out the other side, so it might take a bit of fettling to find the screw holes, but I think I may just have done that. Keep your fingers crossed. otherwise we could be here all day. That's that screwed in, and then there's a note up the top here that says to bend the wires into the middle. So there we have it, one front end partially built and the motor added, and that completes this part of the build, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching, bye!